Hi, this is Little Dwarf playing games while rambling incoherently into a microphone. Why? Well, just because I can, and this time I'll be playing Tyranny Blind. I have heard a lot of good things about this game, and I am a fan of a couple of other games by the developers of this, which is Obsidian Entertainment. Namely, I quite enjoy KOTOR 2, and I am a very big fan of Fallout New Vegas, so I have moderately high expectations for this game, just because other Obsidian games that I played have been pretty good. Now, supposedly the sort of quirk of this game is that you play in the service of a bad guy. There's like an evil empire that you serve. Which might be kind of difficult for me, because I usually play, quote-unquote good characters, especially on the first time when I play a game. I usually try to do all of the good deeds and make all of the NPCs happy and, save lives and whatever. So sometimes I just can't even... Sometimes, even when playing a game for a second time, I can't compel myself to choose the evil path. So this might be a little hard for me, but it's also going to be interesting, because I imagine such a setting will give me a lot of situations where, I can talk about like moral dilemmas or my personal stance on morality, which is something that I always enjoy, ethical discussions. Or philosophical discussions in a more broader sense. So, without further ado, let me start a new game. I will be playing on normal. I usually play on harder difficulties, but this is a classic RPG with a lot of mechanics, and I just don't feel equipped to choose a higher difficulty level. It would involve probably me spending a lot of time with tooltips and whatnot, and probably dying even then, I imagine. It's it says here it's suited for veterans of isometric RPGs, which I'm not at all a veteran of this type of game specifically, so I am going to choose normal, and obviously no expert mode and no Trial of Iron, because Trial of Iron is basically you die once and the game deletes your entire save file, so I'll just choose normal. Normal difficulty requires strategy and efficiency, but forgives a few mistakes in combat. Companion combat AI is enabled by default.
For over 400 years, the armies of Kairos the Overlord have swept across the known world. All who stood against them fell before their might. Even the Archons, women and men of immense power, were forced to kneel, chained to the Overlord's will. Now Kairos' final conquest has come to our corner of the world, and two of the Overlord's armies compete for the honor of taking our lands. The elite disfavored, and the teeming horde of the Scarlet Chorus. The voices of Narad, spymaster and Archon of secrets, guides the fierce and undisciplined masses of the Scarlet Chorus. With each battle, the Scarlet Chorus grows stronger, as the defeated are given a simple choice: serve or die. Graven Ash, Archon of War and the Overlord's most loyal general, leads the disfavored. Though small in number, Kairos' ironclad legion has never met true defeat in open battle. Watching over the two generals is Tyranny, the Adjudicator, Archon of Justice, eldest of Kairos' minions. Tyranny brings Kairos' laws to newly conquered lands, aided by the Fatebinders, judges and executioners of the Overlord's laws. You were among the youngest of the court of Fatebinders when Kairos' armies came to our lands. How could we have known that the fate of thousands would rest in your hands?
Okay, so there's one thing that has sort of caught my ear, which is that they very specifically, they referred to Kairos as them. They you know, they aren't a gendered person. Like, they aren't either male or female. They very specifically avoided going either direction. I find it interesting because it might mean a couple of things. First of all, it might mean that, well, I guess technically speaking, it might literally mean that that they have no gender, because either they are not of a type of person that would even have a gender, or they are sort of powerful enough and removed enough that they sort of don't identify either way with male or female. But it might also mean that nobody really knows, who Kairos is. He seems to rule sort of by delegation. Like, there has been, there are those Fatebinders carry out his will. So maybe they don't even know who he is exactly. Like, maybe he's sort of just some kind of a mysterious presence that beams orders into their minds or whatever. That's just something that caught my ear. So I will be playing a man. In the Northern Empire, when you were born, men enjoy equal protections under the laws of Overlord Kairos. In the southern land of the Tears, only men may own or captain ships, but real estate is restricted to women. Men may lease, but durable ownership of the land in the Tears always passes to the eldest daughters or sisters. Most sons enter their father's profession by their mid-teens. Those without a profession or family lands to work can find purpose by pledging service to one of the Overlord's mighty Archons. Criminals, derelicts, and others are often conscripted into the armies of the Archons. If a child cannot force their own skin, he will certainly find one in battle. Okay, funnily enough, it gives me a tooltip for Kairos, but it doesn't give me a tooltip for skin, which, is it an English word? Is it a regular word? I don't know what that means. But what can you tell me about Kairos? Kairos is a name out of legend. For centuries, the Overlord has consolidated power, sending vast armies to swallow entire realms. The most powerful mystic the world has ever seen, Kairos can issue edicts, magical proclamations that level cities, spread pox, sunder the lands, or change the course of seasons. The Archons, the masters of magic throughout the known world, bow to Kairos, and the Overlord readily destroys any Archons unwilling to kneel. These sorceresses and madmen led the Overlord's armies in near-endless conquest. As the realms of the known world fall to the Overlord, these captured territories are divvied up among the Archons to manage. Able to deliver suffering and woe to every corner of Terratus without leaving the capital, few have seen the Overlord in person. Though Kairos' name is the single most recognizable name in the world, only the Archons can say what the Overlord looks like. Okay, so I guess people do meet him, or do meet them in person. It's just a very limited pool of people that do that. And what's interesting about this is that it seems, in a way, at least when it comes to gender equality, Kairos' empire is actually sort of more equitable than whatever land we're trying to conquer now, because it says here that men and women enjoy equal protections under the law where I come from, which is the part of the world that Kairos has already conquered, but it is not so in the tiers that we're trying to conquer right now. Also, it's interesting because it seems to me the tiers skew a little in the in the direction of a matriarchy. Like, if you would ask me, I would say it's much more important to be able to hold land than it is to be able to captain a ship. Like, you can amass much more power and much more quickly if you own land versus if you own a ship. So men seem to be disadvantaged in the tiers. I guess if anything, our conquest will bring them some gender equality. Okay, I can use choose a body type. I will choose this one. He seems pretty buff, but not overly so, like this one, who's an absolute unit. Sure, I can have a bit of a tan. Okay. To be honest, how I look like is not the most important thing, because this is an isometric game. I won't be looking at my character pretty much like ever close up, other than this very screen at the beginning of the game. Okay, that works. How did you join Kairos' army? Today you're a Fatebinder, agent of the Archon of Justice. You're by no means free, but as a warrior scholar deputized with discretionary powers to interpret and execute the laws of the Overlord, you are freer than most. One does not apply to be a Fatebinder. One is called by Tunon, the Archon of Justice, and to decline is death. Millions of men and women live in the dozens of realms ruled by the Overlord. How do you stand out from those among the teeming mass of desperation and insignificance and gain the Archon's notice? Now let's read about Tunon. Tunon the Adjudicator is the Archon of Justice, ruler of the conquered realms, and the arbiter of disputes. Oldest of the Archons, sent to conquer the tiers, Tunon speaks with Kairos' authority. His true appearance remains hidden behind an iron mask, the face of judgment. Tunon is an impartial, sober creature, wholly obsessed with justice and order. Though assumed to be a powerful combatant, Tunon rarely strays from his throne room, entrusting his court of Fatebinders to act as his eyes and ears, as well as judges, juries, and executioners. I can be a pit fighter, a soldier, a hunter, lawbreaker, guild apprentice, war mage, noble scion, or a diplomat. I think I am going to go for a diplomat because I assume it's going to give me some bonuses to diplomacy or like persuasion, and usually, especially when playing for the first time, I really love to have like an ability to persuade people or solve conflicts non-violently via conversation. It's a playstyle that sort of speaks to me, and it's kind of coupled with the fact that I don't like... I prefer to solve conflicts non-violently if the game gives me that option, so I think I am going to go with a diplomat and hope it's going to impact, give me more leeway in solving conflicts without the use of fighting. Though they would never tell you why, Kairos bestowed great wealth upon your family for some unmentioned service, and your parents used the wealth to have you raised far from home. Your childhood was a nomadic tour of Terratos with hired tutors and fleeting friendships. While others had stability and routine, you had a worldly and varied education. A careless word in a far-flanked city landed you in legal trouble, and you were taken before Tunon the Adjudicator and made to stand trial. Not only did you plead your innocence, but you turned the accusations around on the accuser for wasting the court's time, and the Archon of Justice concurred. Amused by your wit, wisdom, and adaptability, Tunon claimed you as his newest enforcer. Okay, that suits me. As a primary expertise, as one of Tunon's Fatebinders, you received training in the arts of war, the intrigue of magic, and the inexhaustible depths of Kairos' law. Across the Northern Empire, the education of a Fatebinder is second to none. Those bearing the title are expected to read instructions and understand the economics of the realms in which they operate. Literacy and mathematics, skills rarely found on Terratus, are essential skills in the execution of law. Subtler talent like speechcraft or tactics are honed with time and experience under Tunon's guidance. Okay, so I guess the main choice first is, do I want to be a warrior type or a mage type? Like, you know, a mage would stuff maybe work better with persuasion, because you know, I assume they share some of the necessary attributes like intelligence or whatever, wisdom. But the problem I kind of foresee with magic is that it might be a little too complicated for me to get, because especially like in D&D, you know, or in D&D like games, you have a lot of spells with different spell effects and like different resistances to them and whatever. It actually requires a bit of forethought to sort of plan a mage character, I feel like. But I might go for it. Like, I think it would possibly work better with my particular... you know, I would prefer to avoid fighting as long as I can anyway. Yeah, I think I'll try it. Hopefully it works out for me. Frost magic is an offensive school that focuses on slowing enemies as well as dealing cold damage. A frozen grasp deals damage, frozen affliction versus endurance versus magic. Yeah, as you can see, there are different types of resistances. I hope it's going to work out for me. What do I want? Like, I guess frost would be good for crowd control as well. You know, I could slow people or like make them, you know, freeze them literally, for my other allies to deal with. Sure, let's go with frost. Oh, secondary. Okay. Believing that all of his agents should be well-rounded, Tunon ordered that you receive training in a secondary combat style. Fatebinders are often deployed into treacherous circumstances, and one's ability to adapt to unexpected changes like the sudden violence or legal entanglement can represent the difference between the life and death. Oh, I can choose the same thing twice, and it gives me like a different selection of spells. But, should I do that? Maybe it's better if I have different spells, because some enemies might be resistant to magic. Although, you know, making a well-rounded character is also difficult, but given it gives me specifically this chance to choose two different ones, sets of skills, I have to imagine it's entirely possible to create a character who develops two different sets of skills and is still a workable character. I might go with Atrophy for debuffs. Atrophy magic drains the skills and attributes of your enemies, weakening their attacks and making them easier to kill. Touch of Atrophy, -3 to might, -3 to vitality. Okay. Okay, so I choose my own like personal banner, I guess. Is there something that would sort of relate to diplomacy? Or maybe like a book to represent my pursuit of knowledge? Okay, this works okay. It looks as if it's some kind of a you know, you're nursing something in your hands. It's okay as a symbol. Okay, sure. Let's go with this. Enter a name. Let's go with, I don't know. It's a pity there's no like randomizer for names or something. Okay, let's go with Stanis Javert, which is sort of you know, a callback to two characters that I sort of really enjoy in fiction. And they are also a little similar to each other in certain ways. Okay, so attributes. Might determines physical strength of a character. Increased might leads to more powerful attacks and stronger abilities, as well as increasing the endurance. Okay, so the game tells me I should pack most of my skills into Wits and Resolve, because this attribute is strongly recommended for you because of your training in frost spells and atrophy spells. Okay, the Wits attribute determines characters' mental acuity, their ability to observe their environment and pick up on clues. Wits is used to increase spell strength as well as increase the magic defense. Resolve determines a character's ability to endure physical and mental challenges. It is a primary attribute used to derive the endurance, will and magic defenses. It also increases the duration of afflictions applied by the character. Vitality determines a character's physical health and the strength of personality. It also increases the will defense. Quickness determines how often a character can use their abilities and spells in combat, reducing cooldown duration. Finesse attribute represents character's physical and mental precision. It's used to determine accuracy of attacks and spells, as well as increasing worn armor's chances to reduce a hit type. Example, a critical to a hit or a hit to a graze. Okay, I'll go with this. Because seemingly, interestingly enough, and I feel like this is a good and sensible design choice. It seems that none of those are actually dump stats for a given character, because even might, it increases my physical damage, but it increases my spell damage as well. So, you know, it's not like in classic D&D, where if you're a mage, strength is borderline useless to you, because you can't use heavy armor anyway, and you don't deal physical damage. Okay. It recommends I put stuff in magic staff, which, sure, out of all of those weapon skills, surely that's the way to go. Determines the effectiveness of attacks using a magical staff. Higher skill values lead to more accurate attacks, increasing the chance of critical strikes. The accuracy of magical attacks is determined by both the magic skill and the magic staff skill. Okay. Determines a character ability to draw and control spells that use the sigil of atrophy. I wonder, why is my frost noticeably higher than my control atrophy? The dodge skill defends against the range attacks from bows, javelins, or magic. Okay, you can have a couple of points. Lore skill determines your character ability to decipher information and put together clues from fragments of information. This skill is critical for magic users who wish to learn new runes to power their spells. Lore is also used in dialogue to determine what you know about the history of the world or to impress others with your intelligence. Sure, I am dumping a lot of points into this. Subterfuge skill determines the character ability to move unseen. It's also used in dialogue to determine your ability to deceive or trick a person you're speaking with. Sure. Athletics determines the character ability to traverse difficult terrain. Also used in dialogue to determine your ability to intimidate or physically overpower someone. The parry skill defends against melee attacks. Okay. Okay, I think I'll go with what I've chosen. Hopefully I managed to get through the game. How do you want to continue? Selecting the Conquest option will allow you to play through Kairos' Conquest of the Tiers. Choosing how your character was involved in the invasion. This gives you the most control over the starting state of the game and how other characters will react to your character. Sure, of course.
All the world has fallen to Kairos. And now the Overlord's eye is on the Tiers, our home. The last corner of the world free of Kairos' reign. Two armies, the Disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus, march south from the Northern Empire, the last realm to fall to Kairos a century prior. In the early days of 428, Kairos' armies arrive at the Gates of Judgment, the mountainous border that we Tiersmen so long believed unassailable. Unable to agree on a unified plan of defense, the various leaders of the Tiers sit and wait for each other to deal with the conquerors, until it's too late.
To be honest, how stupid can you be? Like, if this was one of the first realms that Kairos has conquered, then I would understand them bickering between each other. That's human nature. But this is literally one of the last parts of the known world that we're invading. All of the rest belongs to Kairos already, so they had to have known that we are going to invade soon enough. So, like, how dumb can you be where you're being threatened by a power that has conquered the entire world apart from you, and when it comes to you, you still can't present a unified defense? During the Conquest, you will decide your character's actions during the Kairos' invasion of the Tiers, shaping the world through which your adventure will through which you will adventure over the course of the game. Each choice you make affects your character and how major factions around the Tiers respond to you. Your decisions matter. Choose wisely. Year 1 of Kairos' Conquest. The Bastard City stood on the northern border between Kairos' empire and the Tiers. Built upon a natural harbor at the crossroads between the realms, the city was a nexus of commerce. To the Tiers, it was a center of all wealth. To a northerner, it was little more than a backwater trading post. Its symbolic status as a gateway to the continent made it a natural first target for Kairos' military conquest. Circumstances were ideal for you to prove your worth as a soldier in Kairos' armies. Taking the city would send a message to the rest of the Tiers. Kairos' will is insurmountable. Bastard City, named for its position between the two realms, the Northern Empire and the Southern Tiers, the Bastard City and its surrounding lands, known as the Bastard Tier, is a melting pot of cultures and a place of commerce and intrigue. The Tiersmen of the South view the Bastard City as a place of wealth and excess, but to the people of the Northern Empire, the Bastard City is a little more than a But to the people of the Northern Empire, the Bastard City is little more than a sprawling slum. Tunon the Adjudicator established his court in the Bastard City. From this foothold in the Tiers, he and his court of Fatebinders imposed Kairos' laws upon the conquered land. Oh, I somehow feel the tooltip is speaking too early, because at this point we haven't yet taken it. Okay, so I have alternate options. Infiltrate the Tiers. Both armies sent their forces to prepare the way. Gates of Judgment. In the first major engagement of the war, Kairos' armies crossed the mountains and established a foothold. Is this a choice, like either or? Because if so, I would very much imagine infiltrating it first is a better military strategy. But let's read the descriptions first. The armies of Kairos took the battle to the Gates of Judgment, trumpeting the opening call of the conquest of the Tiers. The two armies, the Disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus, brought their distinguished sense of order and chaos to the assault. You went to battle alongside the army whose approach better suited your strength. Disfavored. Disciplined and battle-hardened, the Disfavored are an elite legion in Kairos' army. They spearheaded the conquest of the younger realms, finding themselves always outnumbered but never outclassed. Led by the steadfast and dutiful Graven Asher, whom they follow with obsessive devotion, they are committed to imposing their interpretation of order upon the relative lawlessness of the Tiers. The legion only tolerates northerners in the ranks, priding themselves on their high standards and cultural purity. The Scarlet Chorus is little more than a gang of thugs and their captive slaves. Rather than organize under commissioned officers, the Chorus follows a hierarchy seemingly ruled by whoever has the bravado to command and defend their position. At the head of this chaotic pecking order, the Archon of Secrets, better known as the Voices of Nerat, treats the Scarlet Chorus as his personal army. The Scarlet Chorus often suffers tremendous losses after a battle, only to swell in the aftermath when captured enemies and collateral prisoners are given the cruel opportunity to join or die. To be honest, I don't like either of those, but that stems from the fact that I generally don't like evil empires, because, you know, I have the Disfavored sound really badass, but I have a problem with them being culturally prejudiced, because that doesn't even seem to be in line with the official policy of Kairos themselves, because Kairos says, you know, everybody is equal as long as they all bow to him or to them. But the Scarlet Chorus, they are mentioned to keep slaves, which obviously I find deeply abhorrent. So I guess between the two, I would much rather, be closer with the Disfavored, because I find, cultural and racial prejudice is obviously wrong, but I would say it's less wrong than slavery. Infiltrate the Tiers. History would remember the Gates of Judgment as the first battle of the Conquest, but the real combat unfolded with advanced units of both armies, preparing for the coming war. The Disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus each had a plan to infiltrate the capital city. Which army did you join? Yeah, I really think infiltration in advance is a better option than charging head-on. So aid the Disfavored Scouts. You've lent your skills to the elite Disfavored Scouts. To capture a border garrison, Graven Asher insisted that this early victory in the offensive would boost morale of his troops and diminish the haughty overconfidence of the Southerners. You joined the Scarlet Chorus as they raided villages and small towns, conscripting every able-bodied man and woman into their army. The Voices of Nerat emphasized the rewards of conscription and enslavement over wanton bloodshed. Apparently his soldiers needed a reminder. Okay, I'm not going to help the Scarlet Chorus capture slaves. I find that, abhorrent, and I would rather have no part in it. Like, obviously, this is a choice between hell and damnation, because either way we're invading a sovereign land, and we are still trying to beat them into submission. But given the choice between, like, you know, giving them an honest thrashing and just straight up murdering them in battle versus enslaving them, I think a clean death is a lot better, actually. So I will go with the disfavored. Although, let me read about the archons that lead them. So, Graven Asher, the last of the great northern generals to stand against the Overlord in ages past, Archon Graven Asher now serves Kairos as supreme commander of the Disfavored Legion and is charged with conquering the Tiers. Graven Asher shares a powerful bond with the soldiers under his command and regards each of them as family. The death of a soldier at enemy hands represents a grievous loss to the old general, who bears the burden of his love with mournful stoicism. And what about Voices of Nerat? The Voices of Nerat, known in his official capacity as the Archon of Secrets, the Voices of Nerat is in equal parts genius and a madman. Rumors abound that he can steal the minds of others, though few, if any, are alive to confirm it as such. The subject of his interrogations are never heard from again, and the Archon is able to recall the memories of his victims with startling accuracy. He is the inconsistent leader of the Scarlet Chorus, vacillating between commanding from the vanguard and directing his armies in absentia. Despite strange methods, no one doubts that the Voices of Nerat is an accomplished strategist, even suggesting that his madness stems from thinking hundreds, perhaps thousands of steps ahead of his enemies. Okay, I am going to join the disfavored on this. So, let's go. The Oathbound scouts identified a modest border defense and collaborated on an organized attack that would leave the enemy uncoordinated and cut off from aid. You oversaw the preparations and offered your opinion on the strategy. When the clashing of swords and spears fell to silence, followed by the cheering of the disfavored scouts, you were the least surprised. Okay, so you found an ally within the city to prepare the way for the approaching armies, or the bastard city resident fire mages threatened the first leg of the conquest. Kairos' forces put a stop to their unchecked power. I guess let's read the descriptions and then I'll compare it. With the border garrison captured by your disfavored allies, you traveled far ahead of Kairos' armies and lurked in the shadows of the bastard city. You decided that converting one of the locals to Kairos' side would help bring the city to its knees. After all, corruption starts from within. You enlisted a bitter captain of the guard to sell military secrets to the disfavored. Better that Kairos' forces marched to their next inevitable victory well informed. Or you came to an arrangement with a well-connected smuggler who knew how to sneak agents of the Scarlet Chorus behind the city walls. The Scarlet Chorus were better operatives than soldiers, and this work required a subtle touch. Or I can deal with the mages. Your fiercest opponents in the Bastard City were the mages of the School of the Wild Wrath. Too barbaric to use their powers responsibly, the unbridled practitioners needed to be stopped. How did you trick the hot-tempered mages into their own undoing? You lured the hot-headed mages into an ambush, where a legion of disfavored waited to spring the trap. The soldiers were hungry for a chance to subdue the arcane branch of the Tier's resistance. You tricked the guild elders into meeting with the Voices of Nerat, the Archon of Secrets. The Archon was notorious for his cruel and mysterious interrogation techniques. The mages were never seen again. Okay, infiltrating the city definitely again seems like a good choice. You know, before an invasion, although, you know, stopping the mages is also important. So but ultimately, I think this is a better opportunity for taking the city with the least amount of casualties. Now, despite my dislike of the Scarlet Chorus, I think they might be better equipped to deal with something like this. You know, they are literally led by the Archon of Secrets, who's supposed to be like a master strategist, spy, whatever. So while the disfavored, they seem very sort of head-on, I don't think they are very well equipped for like espionage. So I will entrust this to the Scarlet Chorus, and hopefully they don't overdo on the slavery part. After accepting his deserved payment, the smuggler uncovered a long-forgotten tunnel that intersected with the sewers of the Bastard City. Armed with the maps of the subterranean layout, your Scarlet Chorus allies fanned out to occupy various city districts undercover. They spent ensuing weeks murdering key officials and sabotaging defenses whenever possible, weakening the tier's capital under the very noses of its leaders. Betrayal of the Bastard City. Your tactics of infiltration placed you in the Bastard City ahead of the main armies. Your work softened the city's defenses for the arrival of Kairos' forces, but you wanted a decisive gesture that would give your allies a meaningful advantage. How did you assist in the fall of the Bastard City? Duel the City Marshal. You challenged the commander of the Bastard City's defenses to an honorable fight to the death. The disfavored wished to spare soldier lives for the battles ahead, and civilian lives for the occupation. Spreading the word of Kairos, you converted the poor and disaffected into the hidden army of a Scarlet Chorus. Once the dust settled, the army wished to bolster their troops with these sleeper cells. Keeping to the shadows, you eliminated the leaders of the Bastard City one by one. Minus 50 damage. Actually, that's a pretty cool skill. It heals me once per encounter. A duel seems pretty cool, although I wonder, you know, are there any standards about magic? Like, because obviously I wouldn't fight them head on, I would fight them with magic. And in most fantasy universes, I know people would find that dishonorable. You know, mages can duel between themselves, or like warriors between themselves, but usually people find it dishonorable where, you know, a warrior challenges you to a duel and you just lob a fireball in his face. But I will accept a duel. The city marshal was old but an experienced firefighter, and his value to the guard was an accepted truth. After making guarantees for your protection, you met him in the square of the market district and fought in the view of tense onlookers. The battle drew on longer than you thought possible. Good fortune struck when an ornamental chain hanging from the marshal's armor snagged the quillon of his sword, granting you the opportunity to end his life swiftly. Kairos' forces celebrated your return to camp and the dissolution of the enemy morale. All agreed that the Bastard City was poised to crumble. Crumble it did, apparently. The Bastard City settled into a new life of normalcy, with every tower displaying Kairos' banner. Your name was whispered alongside rumors of a decorated career to come. The armies divided into two fronts and migrated south. Tunon sent word that you were to join the next frontier of Kairos' conquest, either as a judge and overseer of the settlement of Lethian's Crossing, or as a war advisor with the armies advancing into the realm of Apex. You may only choose one of those locations. Lethian's Crossing. Despite deposits of iron made the settlement of Lethian's Crossing a strategic war asset, Chiron sent the forge-bound smith mages of exceptional skill to establish a flow of weaponry. Tunon the Adjudicator sent one of his Fatebinders to ensure the enforcement of Kairos' laws. Or Apex. The troops of the mountain realm of Apex stood idle in the safety of their valley, biding their time as their neighbors in the Bastard tier fell. In the second year of the war, a joint force of the Disfavored and the Skyred Chorus crossed over the mountains to take control of the tier's central valley. Okay, out of the two, I think dealing with this sort of powerful stronghold might be a more important thing. Obviously, supply is also important, but I fail to see where this seems to be more of an administrative sort of logistical challenge. I don't think it requires my special expertise. I will go to Apex. Year 2 of Kairos' Conquest. The mountain nation of Apex, ruled for generation by the queens of House Vendrian, stood at the heart of the tiers. No army could bypass the landlocked realm without leaving their flanks exposed to attack. By the second year of the war, the Disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus have pushed deep into the tiers. Elements of both armies were dispatched to conquer Apex. Tunon assigned you to accompany them, tasked with bringing forth Kairos' law to the territory, as well as keeping an eye on both armies. The Battle of Edgering Pass, the Archon of Stone's assault, was perhaps too successful. Denial of Strength, a new school of mages presented problems and opportunities. A school of water mages loyal to the Tiersmen posed a substantial threat. The Disfavored wished to annihilate the school, while the Scarlet Chorus insisted on capturing the mages, wishing to learn their craft. You say that with the Disfavored, all mages had a chance to surrender before the war, and trying to capture the enemy would lead to needless losses. You sided with the Scarlet Chorus, ordering the mage elders taken alive for interrogation. Okay, let's check the other option. The Disfavored sent their most destructive ally to crush the Edgering Fort, Cairn, Archon of Stone. Buried the stronghold under an avalanche triggered from the surrounding mountains. The Scarlet Chorus were promised captured enemies for recruitment, yet none survived. The Chorus demanded compensation. You congratulated the Disfavored for taking the pass without risking the lives of Kairos' loyal servants. At this stage of the campaign, it was vital to use any advantage that would mitigate ally losses. You upheld the Scarlet Chorus' claim and demanded that the youngest of the Disfavored scouts join the Chorus to settle the debt. Like, I'm afraid to choose this because, you know, my hope would be that maybe some of them survive and get the chance to join the Scarlet Chorus, because that seems to be the Scarlet Chorus's modus operandi. But on the other hand, slavery is also their modus operandi. And the voices of the rat is all creepy, and whoever goes and talks to him is seldom seen again. So maybe it would be, you know, kinda to just kill them, or to go with this. I guess let's read about Cairn first. As tall as the hills, Cairn is the Archon of Stone, master of earth and soil, destroyer of mountains and cities. He is the reluctant leader of the Earthshaker Guild, though he is less their teacher and more the object of study. The massive Archon is sworn to Graven Asher and provides arcane support to the Disfavored war effort. What do I do with this? Yeah, I guess this doesn't really need my input that much. Like, it's a legal dispute, which I guess falls under my purview of jurisdiction as a Fatebinder. But this is literally a military sort of. This is a part of the military campaign because here the battle is already won before I even show up. So let's just kill the mages, I guess. You granted the disfavored the honor of killing the Tidecasters, as they called themselves, and Cairn, the Archon of Stone, was dispatched to lay waste to the mages. The nearly indestructible Archon slew the school's champions in one glorious and bloody battle of magic. The Scarlet Chorus dispensed with any celebrations, observing perhaps Cairn should have left... What? Observing that perhaps Cairn should have left something alive for his Chorus allies to interrogate. Poisoning the well. Poor communication led to a gruesome death of disfavored scouts, or captive captain. Kairos' forces debated over the fate of an enemy captain. Hoping to break the siege, Scarlet Chorus agents poisoned the Apex water supply in secret. Days later, uninformed disfavored scouts died of illness. Outraged by the failure of communication, the disfavored demanded that the Chorus agents be turned over to them for punishment. You upheld the charges, ordering the Scarlet Chorus agents to be delivered to the disfavored. Justice would be served, but at the risk of seeding discontent between the two armies. You denied the complaint. Tragedies happen in war, and the act was not targeted with intent at the disfavored. The reality was more honest than the satisfaction of than the satisfaction the disfavored so wanted. Or when Kairos' forces captured a celebrated enemy hero, the armies bickered over his fate. The disfavored wanted to set him free to convince his peers of Kairos' mercy. The Scarlet Chorus wanted him flayed and staked as an example. Okay, I am very much leaning towards this. You agreed with the disfavored plan and sent the enemy captain back with a message. All those who surrendered or cooperated would be treated with respect as subjects of Kairos' peace. You executed the captain and had his remains fashioned into a terrifying display. Fear was the Scarlet Chorus' most compelling weapon, and you knew that its impact would resonate across the Apex army. Okay, I am going to release him because, first of all, that limits casualties even on the enemy side. Like, if they surrender, they don't die. And, it sucks that we're conquering them, but I have a feeling we're going to conquer them anyway, because Kairos very much seems unstoppable. So the least I can do is try to give them a way in which this war ends with the least amount of death. So let's release him. Shocked by your clemency, the enemy captain vowed to deliver his message in full and paid his respects before departing for his encampment. Though typically more uncompromising, the disfavored praised your innovative thinking. The Scarlet Chorus despised what they viewed as resources wasted, only to release a known enemy back into the wild. The fall of Apex. With the defeat of Apex and inevitability, the armies of Kairos met to discuss how to put an end to this stage of the conquest. Both armies agreed to send an offer of parley. Along with their acceptance, the enemy requested that you appear at the meeting. Word of your fair dealings had apparently spread to their ranks. How did you orchestrate the surrender of the realm of Apex? Through days of mediation, you negotiated the surrender of the valley to Kairos' forces, putting an end to further bloodshed. Taunting the Queen of Apex into striking you under banner of truce, you baited the Queen into a duel and slew her, frightening her vassals into submission. Okay, I am very much in favor of like a peaceful negotiation of surrender, so let's go with the disfavored again. Your former enemies were loath to part with their lands, but they were even more reluctant to continue a war they were losing at every turn. The Tearsmen are a stubborn lot, and despite the grim situation, it still took days of discussion and diplomacy to show them the madness of their tenacity. On the third day of mediation, the rulers of Apex finally submit to your terms of surrender, putting an end to the war in the valley, and freeing up Kairos' forces to march deeper into the Tears. The land of Apex finally rested in the hands of Kairos' forces. The Scarlet Chorus paused to revel in victory, while the disfavored prepared for the next sight, affording themselves but an evening's rest. Kairos' armies radiated out from the conquered citadel and worked their way across the Tears. The disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus aimed to dominate so much territory as possible in the coming year. Your distinguished reputation in the Kairos' military left the choice of your next destination yours to make. Stalwart. With its easily defended position and rich military tradition, the realm of Stalwart was the most formidable realm in the Tears. Azure. Kairos dispatched the Archon of Stone to subjugate the nation of Azure, or the Vellum Citadel. Kairos' conquering gaze fell upon the Vellum Citadel, its treasures, its knowledge, its secrets. Okay, this seems to be some kind of a... maybe like a mage school? Or like an arcane library? So I am going to go for this, because whatever knowledge I gain from that might be useful to me personally. Year 3 of Kairos' Conquest. The Vellum Citadel was an archive and library of massive scale. Its inhabitants were known as the School of Ink and Quill, a circle of mages that centuries ago carved out their own mountainous refuge on lands unsettled by the other major realms. Legends say that the citadel housed a treasure trove of arcane knowledge. The Overlord's spies infiltrated the school and confirmed as much. The time was ripe to send a detachment to the Great Library Fortress and force the scholars to yield to Kairos. The Vellum Citadel was a library fortress, the largest archive of written word in the Tears. The School of Ink and Quill protected and maintained the archive of ancient lore for centuries, standing apart from the political upheavals of the younger realms as an enduring pillar of knowledge and culture. Chain of Command. A peaceful surrender turned bloody. Song of Ensnarement. Syrian's song ensnared some stealthy sages. A detachment of Kairos' army marched on the Vellum Citadel, expecting an orderly surrender. As they neared the main gates, a blast of arcane energy struck the commanders dead. Suddenly the highest-ranking officer alive, Kairos' forces looked to you for next steps. The call weighted heavily on your mind, as it had an immediate influence on the soldiers' losses. You ordered the expendable Scarlet Chorus to attack, commanding the disorderly mob forward to give the elite disfavored a chance to withdraw. Though a costly maneuver in the terms of life lost, this assured the survival of the most capable and effective soldiers. Or you ordered the disfavored to advance their shield wall, knowing that a handful of Kairos' elite soldiers could hold off attacks until the Scarlet Chorus retreated. You knew that the disfavored would despise you for any losses at the Scarlet Chorus' expense, but it was a small price to pay for saving lives. Or this. Sirin, the Archon of Song, used her powers to enthrall enemy mages who crept beyond the citadel walls. After Kairos' forces rounded up the arcane practitioners, the disfavored began executing the new captives before they could share dangerous knowledge, a crime under Kairos' law, with the Scarlet Chorus. You calmed the disfavored with a compromise. The sages' mouths would be bound with iron bridles, preventing them from speaking their forbidden knowledge. You punished the disfavored for executing mages bound to the Scarlet Chorus, ordering several of disfavored soldiers to be given to the Archon of Song as her personal bodyguards. Like, would you rather have your mouth sewn shut or be a slave? Like, I guess, you know, being a slave, like, it's one of the most dehumanizing experiences that you can put another human through. I despise it wholeheartedly. I think there's few things that are as evil as slavery. But I guess if you're a slave, you can sort of hope to be free one day, if only if you manage to escape. But I guess also you can, you know, if you manage to get out of the reach of the law, you can also unmuzzle your own mouth. So, you know, there is also that. What do I do with this? Like, I guess I will send the disfavored forward, because the Scarlet Chorus is largely comprised of slaves. So they, you know, the people of the tiers would be killing their own countrymen used as cannon fodder if I sent them forward, whereas the disfavored, they actually pride themselves on their military tradition. If you're a soldier who has willingly joined like an elite unit, you can't really blame anyone for the fact that you're possibly going to die on campaign. Like, people die in war. That's kind of what happens in wars. And I think when I have a choice between sending, you know, barely trained or untrained former civilian slaves into battle or elite soldiers, I would much rather count on the elite soldiers to actually pull their weight. So the disfavored are not going to like me for that, but, you know, maybe that's actually a strategy all in of itself, you know, to sort of balance the favor of the Scarlet Chorus and the disfavored, rather than go 100% one of those routes. Let's send the disfavored forward. The disfavored were quick to follow your command and formed an unbreakable phalanx that gave the unarmored Scarlet Chorus horde a chance to escape. Only once they retreated to camp did the singed and maimed disfavored take issue with the orders. As far as they were concerned, the Scarlet Chorus should have taken care of themselves. If they weren't equal to the challenge of defending their brethren, then they had no place in the Conquest. Lost to the mountains. Intercepted intelligence resulted in a lost disfavored patrol. Plunder of parchment. A dispute over contraband parchment turned violent. The disfavored learned of a hidden enemy enclave and sent scouts to locate it. They never returned from their mission. The remaining disfavored soldiers demanded that you send the Scarlet Chorus to retrieve their scouts, but the Scarlet Chorus flatly refused to fall into the same trap. They recommended that the scouts be treated as wartime casualties. You ordered the Scarlet Chorus to send scouts to locate and rescue the lost disfavored patrol. You consigned the disfavored scouts to their fate. If the elite of Kyros's armies could not return on their own, there was no sense in wasting the lives of the Scarlet Chorus to find them. The army captured a supply of caravan overflowing with arcane books. The disfavored started a bonfire of forbidden texts, but the Scarlet Chorus rescued the tomes from the flames and attacked. In accordance with the disfavored wishes, you upheld Kyros's law regarding forbidden lore and had all of the texts burned. You decreed that the disfavored are welcome to burn their half of the plunder, but the Scarlet Chorus has a rightful claim to the other half, provided you first review the texts to eliminate any touched on by forbidden knowledge. Okay, this is a very sort of prudent thing to do for me specifically, again, because I'm a mage. I might actually learn something from those texts. And generally, obviously, I'm against book burning. I think knowledge in itself is never bad. Like, given a choice between knowing something and not knowing something, I think it's always nobler to pursue knowledge. Even if it's like knowledge of horrible subjects. By itself, I don't think it's... I don't think there's anything wrong with knowledge of horrible subjects. Obviously, methods of acquiring knowledge on horrible subjects might very well be wrong. For example, if it's a result of human experimentation. But I think, if anything, this is a sort of... this means you shouldn't do it. After it's done, I think it doesn't help anyone if you destroy that knowledge, because that's not going to give lives back to whoever lost them in creating that knowledge. So I am going to side with the Scarlet Chorus on this one. The Scarlet Chorus agreed to your generous terms, and you set to poring over every manuscript before it was handed over. The work took several evenings, and you came away with a glimpse of truths better left unknown. Taking the burden upon yourself was a less risky alternative than disseminating it across Kairos' ranks, though it didn't help you sleep at night. Disgusted by your approbation of the Scarlet Chorus, the disfavored forces withdrew from the field of battle. Your small detachment now lacked the manpower to take the Vellum Citadel. Tunon sent word that Kairos' patience has run thin. The Overlord would cast an edict of fire upon the enemy. The parchment arrived in a slender case of engraved iron. Written on it the words of a spell powerful enough to destroy the Vellum Citadel. You had the choice of when to read the edict. Reading it at sunrise would offer your enemies no warning of the devastation to come. You could also wait until sunset, giving them ample time to flee or make amends. Edicts. Kairos' most powerful magic is that of edicts, commandments cast upon whole regions that can take control and destroy men and nature alike. Once cast, an edict can rain fire, wither crops, demoralize cities, usher in endless night, or do whatever it is that Kairos has envisioned. No known force, magical or mundane, can stop an edict, though each edict is often worded to include some condition or contingency that will see its end. Some edicts have been short-lived, delivering days of wanton catastrophe. Just as many have lingered for centuries. Okay, so it's a bit weird. Like, if Kairos is powerful enough that he can level entire nations with magic by speaking by having his commands read, I'm not quite sure, what's the need for the entire military conquest, but I guess probably he doesn't have the power or the ability to do it like constantly. He probably needs like to replenish or whatever. Give no warning or give 1 day's warning. Opting to give the enemy no quarter, you proclaimed the Edict of Fire at first moments of dawn, granting the enemy no warning of the destruction to come. Though the chorus insisted your actions doomed their spies, the disfavored applauded your decision. Claiming they still had spies in the Citadel, the Scarlet Chorus urged you to warn their mages of the Overlord's edict. Granting their request, you met with the enemy under the blue flag of peace and warned them of their doom, giving the Chorus spies and the enemy a chance to run. I am going to side with the Scarlet Chorus again, not because I like them, and not even because I specifically just care about their spies. I just think it's more merciful to give the enemy a chance to surrender before I rain fire on them. You confronted the mages with a warning and hoped the message was received. The hour before sunset, numerous figures were spotted fleeing the citadel. As the sun dropped under the horizon, you read the words of the edict. The earth shook and the red-orange light glowed in the foundation of the sprawling citadel. Bubbling up from under the library, a torrent of lava heaved with explosive force, gushing from windows and between loose bricks, melting winding trenches in the surrounding land. Days after, the flames still raged on, the conflagration continually fed and renewed by the power of the edict. The armies of Chiron left devastation of the Vellum citadel in silence. From that day forward, the Tears came to know the once noble citadel as the Burning Library. This was an undisputed loss of resources, knowledge, culture and life, but a message has been sent. The Overlord will not tolerate defiance. You didn't have to long to rest before Tunon called you into service once more. You were one of the last to depart from the mountains. As you journeyed off, you spotted a few campfires in the mountains. They were mere specks, dwarfed by the inferno, the last gasps of survivors or perhaps looters from Kairos' armies, bored and daring enough to pick through the ashes. Previously known as the Vellum Citadel, the archive and the ancestral home of the sages is now a site of a volcanic crater. Eruptions of lava began during the conquest of the Tears after Kairos' forces failed to claim the library in the Overlord's name. Kairos cast an edict of fire to break the siege and rid the world of the forbidden knowledge stored there. The citadel has been a smoldering ruin ever since. You have reached the end of Kairos' conquest. Do you want to continue or erase your progress? No, let's continue.
The year is 431, and Kairos' invasion has shattered all major opposition in the Tiers. The Younger Realms, the Bastard Tier, the Free Cities. All who defied Kairos lay broken by battle, or bowed in surrender. The two armies of the Overlord, the Disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus, now control our lands. But our will is not yet extinguished. Not entirely. In the Valley of Vendrian's Well, those of us unwilling to bow to Kairos have banded together in defiance. Violating an oath of surrender from 2 years prior, we have staged a bloody uprising, murdering the Disfavored and Scarlet Chorus garrison in a midnight assault. With their main forces spread across the Tiers, the Disfavored and Scarlet Chorus redeploy to Vendrian's Well to crush the resistance, but months pass with no definitive battle. As disagreement and discord paralyze the Archons, we bide our time and wait for our message of insurrection to spread across the Tiers. The Overlord is not amused, and Kairos has one message for the Archons: crush the Oathbreakers or die. Kairos backs this threat with an edict, a magical commandment that can slay all in the valley should the order be ignored. The honor of proclaiming this edict fell to you. Sent across the mountains to Vendrian's Well, you carry the Overlord's edict to read before the Archons. As you finally make your way through the winding mountain passes into the valley, the ground trembles, and Kairos' magic seals the way behind you. You are trapped in Vendrian's Well, with Kairos' armies and the Oathbreakers. The only way to survive is to fulfill the terms of the Overlord's edict, in any way that you can.
Fatebinder, I presume. We've been expecting you. Well, to be honest, the path behind is now blocked. Kairos' magic has sealed the valley. I will continue next time because this first episode has already been long enough.
Yes.
No, Kairos the Overlord be praised. When I heard the avalanche, I feared the valley was sealed with you on the other side. The disfavored warrior claps her gauntlet to her breastplate, the traditional salute of her legion. A pleasure to see you again, Fatebinder. You were with us before the first official days of the Conquest, and so it is fitting that you are here now, in what I hope is the last gasp of resistance from these backwards tearsmen. Here's hoping you can convince the Archons to settle on a plan to crush the Outbreakers. This is why you're here, right? In honor of the Vendrian Guard reneging on their surrender, soldiers of both the Disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus now refer to those tearsmen as Oathbreakers. It is perhaps one of the few points of agreement between the Disfavored and the Chorus. Now, to be honest, you have to be pretty deranged to hold this kind of betrayal against people that you have conquered by force, and very recently at that. Like, what they were, essentially, they had the choice between surrender or dying, which, obviously, a vast majority of people who have ever lived would choose surrender over death. Self-preservation instinct is a thing, is one of the sort of major things that guides human action, and it's a bit, naive to think that once we have forced them to surrender with violence, they should honor that surrender forever. Like, we have literally taken all of their lands, destroyed some of their most famous landmarks, and killed probably thousands or hundreds of thousands or however many of their people. So obviously they were just biding their strength or waiting for a correct time to rebel. Like, what were you expecting? Is this the first rebellion against Kairos in the history of the world? I am in a hurry to deliver a message to the Archons. I have a lore skill check. Can you hear that hum in the air? The glow around the rocks? The avalanche is Kairos' magic. The Overlord has sealed the valley. Your senses see more than mine, good Fatebinder. I do not pretend to know about such things, but if it was Kairos' magic and you are here on important business, well, you don't have to be the Archon of Secrets to guess that you're here to proclaim an edict. What does Kairos have in store for the enemy? 10 years of festering plague? An edict of twisted bones? Well, I come bearing an edict of Kairos. Our soldiers will complete their task or die. Which, to be honest, this is a majorly dick move on Kairos' part, because clearly they possess strength enough that they could just kill the enemy at will. But instead, they want us to kill them and they threaten us with distraction for failure, which I see as a method of asserting dominance. And the edict is leveled against us. Her eyes widen in fear and her posture slackens. But the Scarlet Chorus prevents us from taking action. Why would the Overlord punish both of... She clears her throat with a sigh. Forgive me, it is not my place to question. We should have conquered the enemy within weeks of arriving in the valley. The delay reflects poorly on both of us. Your first instinct is to blame the Scarlet Chorus. No wonder Kairos resorts to an edict to enforce order. No, to be honest, that is a good point, because the way they act, I find that to be a little bit silly. They act sort of as almost as children, where, for example, in one of those battles, after I backed the Scarlet Chorus, the Disfavored literally picked up their toys and left. Like, they got angry and left because they were offended. Yes, well, her eyes shift to the side. There has been indeed little goodwill between our two armies, and you are right. When we act as we do, what choice do we give the Overlord? She takes a deep breath, nodding as she exhales. And you are right. I should not cast blame so freely, especially not when talking to a servant of justice. My apologies. Well, you've traveled a long way. I won't keep you further. I'm sure the Archons would want to hear from you at... Her voice falls silent, her attention snapping eastward with alarm. Did you hear that? More runners. Third time this week. The Oathbreakers keep trying to send messengers throughout the mountains to gather help from outside the valley. She points over to the collapsed path by which you arrived, but they will be a bit too late for that now. Come, let's show those Oathbreakers a good fight. Well, to be honest, I kind of wanted to end this. Combat. Tyranny uses a pausable real-time combat system because you will often manage more than one character at a time. You know what? I will read the tooltips sort of on my own. I think it's... I will cut it out, actually. I think it's pretty boring to witness that. Especially if you know how the game works.
Will do.
The delay between turns. This one is down. Let's check further along the path. Delay between turns is actually quite extreme. It's like a couple seconds. Potion of protection, a whetstone. Okay, this really has been too long. I will figure out more things next time. But for now, that's all for this one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!